Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all my non-cisgendered brick buddies, welcome to PJ Builds Bricks. I am your humble host, PJ, and here we are with another part of the LEGO Nintendo Entertainment System build, and today is a pretty big one. Yes, today we are going to finish off this guy, the Nintendo Entertainment System itself. So there is quite a lot to talk about, and we're going to have a lot of fun this go-around. And, you know, as you may or may not know, I'm sure some of you are familiar with gaming quite a bit, there are three components that you need to play a video game, right? And this holds true from the earliest days, way back, think like Atari, ColecoVision, Pong even, to the most modern game systems today, PlayStation 5, your computer, Xbox, and it's going to continue into the future all the way up to, who knows, when we're having them like directly zapped into our brains. Anyway, component number one is this guy. The game system. Your NES, your PlayStation, your Xbox, your computer, your ColecoVision, your 501 gaming system that your grandmother bought you from Boscov's last Christmas. You need the game system, right? Okay. Component number two, you're going to need the input device. Obviously, to interact with the game, you need some sort of way to communicate with the console. Be it your standard handheld controller, a joystick, touchscreen. You as the player need to provide input into the system. And we're going to be building the classic NES controller in bag number 8 today. And last but not least, component number 3 is going to be the game itself. Whether it's a cartridge, a CD, a downloaded media game, a mini disc, little like SD cards the Nintendo Switch uses, the game has to be stored somewhere, either physically or digitally to be played. And that's what we're going to be building in bag number 7, the actual game cartridge itself, along with finishing off the top of the NES. So let's talk about the cartridge a little bit, right? Nintendo, they obviously needed something physical to store the game on, and with CD technology there but not really there, it was kind of just invented, so it was still a few years away from being a true consumer product. They decided to go with something tried and true, a game cartridge, which they officially called the NES Game Pack. And by tried and true, I mean this Atari had been using the cartridges, ColecoVision had been using the cartridges, everybody's been using them previously. Now the game cartridge technology, like I said, was nothing new at this point. And what's interesting, and this is really cool, and I've mentioned this before, that, essentially the brother system is the Nintendo Famicom. Pretty much the same thing, just a different design for the American market. They kept this true for the game packs as well. Now in this picture right here, this is a Famicom game pack, right? 2.75 inches long, 4.25 inches wide, and as you can see that in this picture right here, it's the inside of the Famicom game pack. And if you take a look at it, you'll see the chipboard takes up probably about half of the game pack itself. The Nintendo game pack, which you see right here, is a little bit different, right? It's much larger at 5¼ inches tall, but shared that same width at 4¼ inches. And this picture is going to be your Nintendo game pack, what it looks like completely opened up. The chipboard's about the same size as the Famicom, but does it kind of remind you of like a bag of potato chips? Where the chips are down at the bottom and the top is just like a bunch of empty space. And what's even crazier, if you look at this pic, right? There are certain games that literally had the Famicom game pack board inside of them. And they had an adapter that changed it from the Famicom 60-pin pack to the required 72-pin connector that the NES needed. Now, why did Nintendo do this? Well, what's been the theme since episode number 1, right? Think about that for a second. Why did Nintendo make all the design choices they made? Again, Nintendo wanted to make this fit in with an American family's entertainment center setup. As such, they wanted the game cartridges to look like they would fit in with a VCR. So that's why they look like that. Pretty cool, right? Now, Nintendo also required something else of all NES game packs. Now, they required something called a checking integrated circuit, or CIC chip. Now, a little bit of background on that. In 1983, the home gaming market almost completely collapsed because there was a massive influx of games that were extremely poor, just awful. They were called shovelware. That's the technical marketing term for it. And Nintendo wanted to avoid this influx of just garbage shovelware. They wanted any third-party developers to go through a series of quality checks to receive the Nintendo seal of approval. And if you look at this game cartridge pack right here, you're going to see that little gold thing right in the corner, right? That is the official Nintendo seal of approval. And approved games were given this CIC chip, which allowed the games to be played on the NES. However, it wasn't without a little bit of controversy. So at some point in your life, you may have noticed game cartridges looked a little weird. Something like this, right? They weren't that typical gray game pack design, but rather a black, kind of rectangular, weird-shaped thing. This is a Tengen cartridge, and that was probably the most familiar, well-known third-party cartridge out there. And in 1988, Tengen, who was a subsidiary of Atari, actually copied the CIC chip exactly, and they named it the Rabbit chip. And this allowed their games to be played on the NES. Now, there were a couple other companies that did that with various workarounds, such as basically shorting out the CIC verification chip in the Nintendo system, all sorts of things. But Tengen is the only one who did it, just copied it verbatim. Of course, this made Nintendo pretty unhappy, since they weren't able to control the quality of Tengen's games, and Nintendo, of course, sued. Now, long story short, Tengen and Nintendo ended up settling the lawsuit, and Tengen was forced to cease production of their cartridges in 1991. So that's the story behind the game pack. It's pretty cool, right? But we can't use it without building it, right? I mean, everybody, we need our game pack. Anyway, everybody got their build beverages? Mine this week is Fentiman's Traditional Cherry Cola. It's botanically brewed and has been made since 1905. That is absolutely delicious, exquisitely crafted, and I would say it is. Anyway, cheers to you guys, and I'll see you guys at the world-famous build surface after a word from our sponsors. Hello and good evening, and welcome to Brick-a-Piece Theatre. I am your host, Lord Timothy Apple-Bottom Jeans Boots with the Fur, and this evening I shall be reciting an excerpt from the Professor Goose classic, 1 brick, 2 brick, red brick, blue brick. I invite you to pour yourself a libation, find a comfy chair, and enjoy tonight's reading. 1 brick, 2 brick, red brick, blue brick, black brick, blue brick, old brick, new brick. This one becomes a little car. This one becomes a little star. Look at how many bricks there are. Yes, some are red and some are blue. Some are stuck and some are loose. Some are clear, some are chartreuse. Some are straight and some are not. Why are some straight and some are not? I do not know, but it matters not. I truly hope you enjoyed this excerpt from Professor Goose's 1 brick, 2 brick, red brick, blue brick. Please join us on this Saturday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on your local public access television channel as we read the book in its entirety. Good evening. Thank you, Lord Timothy Apple-Bottom Jeans Boots with the Fur, for that lovely reading. And that name, that Apple-Bottom Jeans Boots with the Fur, that's pretty unique, but it sounds really familiar. It's like I've heard it somewhere before, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, it's definitely ringing a bell in my brain, but that bell sound is very low, 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 low. That'll come to me. Whatever. It's not important. On to business. So what we're going to do is we're going to build bags 7 and 8 back to back, because why not, right? For those of you keeping score at home, bag number 7 is going to give us 33 steps and 115 pieces, while bag number 8 will give us 37 steps and 105 pieces. So it's not really a giant build. But of course, before we move on, I got to give you some asthma, right? Enjoy the asthma. Asthma completed, and I invite you to stay after the build because not only will we have the ceremonial placing of the stickers, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the legacy of the Nintendo Entertainment itself. But for now, let's get to work. Alright guys, and there you have it. The Nintendo Entertainment System, our controller, and our game pack. And what's super cool about this controller right here is I can tell you firsthand that having spent several hours with this thing in my hand as a kid, I mean, it almost feels exactly the same. Look, I mean, we can even go up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, start. I mean, nothing happened because it's plastic, but if you know, you know, right? Alright, so we're going to plug this bad boy right into controller port number 1 like so. Beautiful. We got our controller plugged in right here. And now we have our game cartridge, but something is missing. That's right, the last step right here is the application of the sticker. Now, this is the sticker right here, Super Mario. There's 2 of them. Now please, please, I need complete silence, as this takes a large amount of concentration.
Hello friends, and welcome to the sticker placing ceremony. He has already peeled the sticker off the backing sheet, and he is looking to line it up perfectly in the middle of the game pack background. Looks like he's got the center down, he's got one side, now he's got the other, and he's just going ahead and smoothing it out, which is important to make sure all the air bubbles are out and the sticker lays evenly. He's now pulling the second half of the sticker, and yes, you can see the immense pressure that this builder is under as he wipes the sweat from his forehead. You must make sure your hands are dry to be able to do this successfully. And he's lined up that second half of the sticker, and it looks like he's got it mostly down, and I think, yes, ladies and gentlemen, he has done it.
Thank you.
He has applied the sticker successfully. This is going to be a moment that will live in history as excellence and amazement like only a builder can.
It's kind of weird with the crowd noise out of nowhere and the announcer and everything, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, time to put this guy into the system first, right? It's going to go right in here before... Hold on, almost forgot a very important step with this. And to blow out the dust, right? And we're going to put this guy right in here and push it down like on the Nintendo. Close the door, and we are ready to play. And that's going to bring the first half of this build to a conclusion. Next episode, we're going to build the TV and the actual Mario game that comes with the set and get into the lore and history a bit of Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom. But before we do that, what exactly is the legacy of the NES as a system? Well, the NES is widely considered to be one of the most important video game consoles in history and a turning point in the home gaming market. Now, earlier in this episode, I alluded to the video game crash of 1983, right? And prior to that, the gaming market, the global video game industry, was worth somewhere around $42 billion with a B dollars. Now, keep in mind, this is 1983 or so. So adjusted for inflation, that comes out to about $127.3 billion today, which is fairly comparable to today's gaming industry. Today's gaming industry is worth $159 billion worldwide. Also, though, keep in mind that in 1983, we didn't have iPhones. We didn't have, simple portable handhelds. We didn't have a way of having our game system on our person at all time. Because remember, in the global gaming market nowadays, they do count mobile phone game sales. The technology was very cost prohibitive to most people, way more so than it is even today. So there were less gamers, but they were spending more money on the games. Now, a good example of that is, you know how today, like, games are about $60 or so? A game for the NES back in the 80s would set you back $60 a well. $60 then, $60 now. We adjust that $60 back in the 80s for inflation, and you're shelling out about $130 in today's money. That's about the price of a nice collector's edition of a video game with a statue and, a booklet, the whole 9 yards. And now I kind of understand why my parents always made me rent games or maybe buy them secondhand rather than buy them brand new, because they were freaking expensive. So anyway, my point here is $42 billion globally in 1983, right? Then, due to an oversaturation of the market with consoles, poor quality games, just a bunch of shovelware that I mentioned earlier, a pile of garbage, literally leading Atari to bury the E.T. video game in a field somewhere. And or in the desert. And there's a really cool documentary on that. You can watch it. It's on Netflix. I don't know, but check it out. It's really neat. Some guys dug up the pit and found all these E.T. games. But anyway, not about that. These poor quality games and this shovelware caused the market to shrink from $43 billion to just $14 billion in 1985. That's 2 years. the industry lost about 66% of its value. In the United States alone, it was even worse, right? We went from a $3.2 billion gaming market to just $100 million, a loss of somewhere around 97%. Things were looking pretty dire for the gaming market. But here comes Nintendo to save the day. In America alone, the NES sold 35 million units, and by 1989 had done the majority of the heavy lifting to boost the gaming market to $5 billion. This surpassed the previous high of $3.2 billion. Globally, things were looking up as well. And I also say that Nintendo did the heavy lifting because there were still other companies. ColecoVision was still around, Atari was still around, Sega was a player as well. But as Atari was waning, other companies started to challenge Nintendo for dominance, especially in the US market. Sega came over. And if you guys remember, the battle between Nintendo and Sega was absolutely legendary and raged for several years. You know, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the Sega CD, Sonic, Mario, just going back and forth, head to head. Eventually, as we all know, somewhere probably around, I think it was like 96 or so, Sony PlayStation came out. A couple years later, Microsoft Xbox. And Sony and Microsoft had joined the fray, and now we had a couple different major competitors, Sega, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. And still today, Sega got absorbed by Nintendo, but what are the main consoles, right? We still have Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft today. Of course, you have your PCs as well, but we're just talking about console gaming markets. But that grew to today having that $159 billion global game industry. And now games are at the forefront of our pop culture. I mean, the Super Mario movie was just released and it's doing phenomenal at the box office, right? You have millions of people on Twitch, on TikTok, YouTube, all sorts of social media broadcasting themselves playing video games. It's almost like something that was unheard of back in 1983. Yes, we all know the Nintendo World Championships and competitive gaming back then, but it wasn't nearly at the forefront as it is today. And I like to say that's thanks to Nintendo. Because Nintendo not only revolutionized the home gaming technology, but they changed the way that games were approached, right? Previously, games had a simple backstory, of course, to add some context. Take the red blocks, they're fighting the blue box, they've been in the war for so many years and they're mad at each other. But Shigeru Miyamoto and Nintendo, with the introduction of fully developed characters such as Mario, Link, Donkey Kong, Samus, Kirby, characters with full-fledged stories and lore that still carry on today. Video games became not just some sort of competitive or some skill medium or just kind of a way to kill a little bit of time and have some fun, but rather video games have become a storytelling medium. Kind of to make just a comparison for you guys, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of course, some of our most beloved characters, Mario, Link, so on and so forth, I consider him and what his contribution is to the gaming industry right on par with Walt Disney did for animation and storytelling. I would kind of consider them just both the masters of their medium. But that video game lore, especially the lore of Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom, is a story that's going to be told in the next half of our series, where we build the console TV as well as a working Mario game. Pretty cool, right? I'm looking forward to it, and I want to thank you guys all so very much for tuning into this episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed not only writing it, but delivering it to you. I mean, video games is something I've loved ever since I was able to sit up as a 2-year-old with an Atari joystick in my hand playing Snoopy and the Red Baron. And what I would like you guys to do is to maybe comment below with your favorite Nintendo memories. I mean, one of my earliest is, and I'll never forget this, when my parents brought me home a Nintendo Entertainment System. And I was so incredibly excited because finally I had one. And I didn't have to spend all my time over at the neighbor's house. In fact, I'm pretty convinced, even to this day, that the neighbors and my parents went in halfsies on an NES because the neighbors wanted to get rid of me, and my parents wanted me home more because I practically lived over there playing the Nintendo. So yeah, I'd like it if you guys could share your memories down below, and of course don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and of course ring the bell for notifications of our new videos when we start building the next half of this series. And right now it's April. I want you guys to spread the word, right? My goal is to get over 100 subscribers by the end of the summer. And if you're from down the shore, like I was, born and raised, you know the end of the summer is Labor Day weekend. So 100 subscribers by Labor Day weekend. Get the word out. I think we can do it. I've got faith in my brick buddies here. Let's go. And of course, don't forget, socks and Crocs may rhyme, but they are definitely a crime. Take care. Cheers. I'll see you all next time.